Jumbo, everyone. I'm Misha Godfrey, and I'm the host of this podcast series called Cross Pollinating Justice. DEI experts for kids and adults share best practices. I am very excited to welcome Scharrell Jackson here for our episode today. She is an extraordinary guest who is a beacon of leadership and inspiration. Scharrell Jackson is a high performance leadership coach, author, and international keynote speaker. Scharrell is renowned for her powerful and impactful speaking style, which has transformed countless lives and organizations. She is the driving force behind the highly acclaimed Leadership in Heels, a nonprofit organization that hosts events where she empowers leaders to reach new heights and supports the underserved through coaching and workshops, shifting individuals to confidence and economic freedom. With a remarkable ability to bring clarity to her clients' end games, Scharrell's work centers on decisive excellence, guiding individuals and teams to make transformative decisions. Her dedication to fostering cultural inclusion, multi-generational excellence, and high-performance leaders has made her a sought-after voice across the globe and in industries. Whether coaching, speaking, or authoring, Scharrell's passion for leadership and her authentic, intimate, and powerful approach resonate deeply with all who encounter her. Please join me in welcoming the phenomenal Scharrell Jackson.
Oh,
Hello,
thank you so
hello.
much.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mija. I appreciate that. I want to make sure, am
Well,
I pronouncing your name correctly?
yes, it's Mija, like Jaja Gabor.
Mija, like
Yes,
Jaja. Okay,
yes,
Mija. I love it. I love it.
that is
Thank you
it.
so
That
much
is
for
it.
having me.
Well, absolutely. I'm so glad to have you here. And I want to just jump right in because you do so many different things that are focused on helping people to become their best. I do wonder how you came to this work through a DEI framework and through a DEI lens.
It's interesting. DEI wasn't a buzzword back when I entreed into corporate America as the only African American and female in the space in which I had the privilege of serving as a chief financial operating officer and a partner in an industry like the professional services where there's 1%, less than 1% women and really no African Americans in the top 100 firms at the C-suite. And what I'm talking about is CEO, COO. I'm not talking about some of the other roles, although that has changed, thankfully, thank goodness. But I entreed into the DEI space simply because as a corporate exec for 35 years, I noticed throughout, especially the early years of my career, that there just weren't enough or even really any women at the table, and there certainly weren't any people of color. And as a result of that, I wanted to utilize not just the skills in leading an organization and people and processes successfully, but more importantly, operate in purpose so that I could create major impact and abundance. And that was to create a safe space when I first started for women to come and talk about matters of the heart that was impacting their trajectory to break the glass ceiling. Now, you're talking about over 20 years ago when there really wasn't the movement like we have now, with so many more women entreng into the C-suite. So I created Leadership in Heels initially for that purpose, but always also supported the underserved, which includes minorities and brown and black community, coupled with those that are economically impoverished, because diversity, equity, and inclusion is about creating a seat and a voice at the table for everybody. So what brought me into that space was that I was the only one, and I felt like everybody who was capable, willing, and qualified needed to have access to the tools to break the barriers to entry, whether they were self-imposed or we believe they were imposed by others. So I created Leadership in Heels and became an entrepreneur as a high performance leadership coach and speaker. And I'm entreing into this journey to create impact and transform lives. So I know that's a long answer, but that's really the reality of how I shifted from corporate to entrepreneurship, focusing on transformation of lives and creating high performing leaders.
Well, thank you. That's outstanding. And I just want to note for our listeners here that Scharrell went through that door and did not close it behind her. She shoved it open and kept it open and started pulling people through so that she would not be the only one at the table. And that is not something everyone does. So I thank you for your leadership in that.
And thank you
And
for that acknowledgement, because it's an interesting thing. I can remember when I started to hire more African Americans, not because I wanted only African Americans, but I was in an organization of hundreds of people with still less than 5% African Americans. And I can remember somebody saying to me, well, wow, there's a lot of Black people here. But in the grand scheme of actual population, if we have 500 employees and there were 10 Black people, was that really a lot? But it was a very interesting, if 90% of my population was non-Black, there was still a recognition that minorities were entering into the space. So it was important to change the fabric of organizations so that we could have diversity of thought.
That's great. So who is your audience? Is your audience the people trying to get through that door or the people who have the power to hold that door open as well?
My audience are aspiring leaders who are leading with intention to not just drive opportunity and business, but to actually build other leaders. And whether you are an entrepreneur that's looking to entree into the space of business and you want to grow your market share across all people, nations, industries, whether you are a CEO of an organization that's looking to build your human capital, my audience are high performing leaders that are looking to elevate and want to have A players on the bench. And A players are all people, regardless of race, sexual identity, gender. It's really irrelevant, but it's to help us to be able to see clearly how we can build and catapult our business and ourselves by opening up the doors and creating opportunities for A players.
That's outstanding. So, what tools do you use to work with the C-suite folks, these CEOs, these COOs, to help them to create an environment that's more open and actually seeking out those eight players for the bench?
You know, what it really is boiling down to is, as you know, DEI was a hot topic when everybody was home during COVID and they saw George Floyd be murdered, and people felt a sense of responsibility, or they just didn't want to be left behind. Whatever their motivating factor was, it opened the door for the term DEI. And you do know that many organizations have shifted, they're quieting it, and/or we have individuals within our nation that are really looking to shut down this movement because there's not the belief in the empowerment and creating equality for all people. And while I do believe in equality for all people, oftentimes we need programs in order to start to level set because many categoricals of individuals are just so far behind. But what I do with organizational leaders is help them to understand ultimately what their end game is. And if their end game is that they want to create a legacy as a leader that can leave a positive, lasting impression, build an organization that's success, and create leaders at the same time, then we do that by having diversity of thought within our space. And like I said, it's about shifting the mindset and being open to different ways of doing things, whether it's specifically related to brown, black, male, female, or multi-generational leadership, boomers all the way to Gen Z, and understanding how by having these various individuals in our wheelhouse, A players that are qualified, our ability to penetrate different industries, penetrate different cultures, it broadens our organization's trajectory in order to grow revenue, attract talent, scale, and create long-term sustainability. Brilliance breeds brilliance. And oftentimes we don't recognize that because we only do things linearly based on the way that we have been taught or what we've done habitually because of fear. So what I do is I first address the fear around getting it wrong or moving into a space that we're not comfortable, and help leaders get comfortable being uncomfortable. I help them understand how aligning their goals and objectives as leaders and ultimately looking to grow their gross revenue and their net income is tied to market share and understanding what the consumers, the actual fabric of consumers look like. Consumers are not just white people, men, they're not just women or people of color. They're all people depending on what you're selling. And then help them to understand how to lead multi-generations because boomers entreed into the workplace for survival and Gen Z is entreing into the workplace to get a job that works for the life they want to live. So helping them to learn how to shift in their leadership through high performance leadership, cultural transformation. And then also guiding them through how to sustain and create a culture within an organization in this new work style around hybrid work environments. So I do this through coaching, where I might be coaching a C-level executive, an entrepreneur, an aspiring leader. I do this through coming in organization and speaking, whether it's at conferences, through the organization, leadership, ERGs, BRGs, and then there's special workshops that I might do through learning and development. So it really is customized depending on the client and their need.
Oh, that's really great. Can you go? I have two questions that are following up. And the first one is if you can go a little bit more deeply into how do you get people comfortable being uncomfortable? Because I think that's really hard in the boardroom, in the classroom, in the PTA room. We all have trouble with that. And then the second one is on this multi I'm going to start over.
Multi-generational.
Thank you.
Oh, good.
Multi-generational inclusion and excellence because, I'm 25 years old and find myself complaining about the youngs, right? Like, oh,
Oh,
they don't want to work. And that's not helpful. It's not helpful for anybody. So how do you get people across the generations, I'm actually Gen X, to appreciate each other, look for each other, and respect each other?
so I think the first question around how we get comfortable being uncomfortable is first, we've got to get clear on our end game. I think ultimately we are living our lives tied to transactions or goals, however you want to frame it. And we're not really focused on the legacy we want to leave and the story we want others to tell. In other words, if we get clear on how we actually want to lead our lives and the legacy we want to leave that's tied to what people will say based on their interaction with us, it'll drive how we make our decisions, which means we've got to shift the way we've done things historically. In other words, if I have decided that my end game, my life cadence is impact, abundance, low stress, great health, joy, and peace, then I'm not necessarily making decisions that compromise one or the other. There's a level of consistency in how I now lead, which often can be uncomfortable because it's not what I have habitually and historically done. So first, we've got to get clear on, as leaders, what truly is our end game. And then we tie our decisions transactionally to that. That is a shift in leadership. And as you shift in leadership, that also is inclusive of multi-generational leadership, which also includes DEI. Look, at the end of the day, I'm Gen X as well. And boomers entreed into the workspace head down for survival. Gen X came in to create a better life. You have these millennials that were taking advantage of technology, and Gen Z is looking at it like, look, I'll work there if it works for my lifestyle. So while boomers was creating a life, Gen Z is not compromising the life that they desire. So it's important that we understand and respect where each of us are. And as opposed to looking at our differences as something that is a conflict, let's look at how we can bridge the gap because ultimately we're better together. So what I encourage leaders to do is ensure that you have proper representation of qualified by generation and culture at the table because it's going to infuse power in your organization when it comes to penetrating the marketplace for sustainability because you have representatives across every single client base. And once you do that and you start to understand, we've got to assert some authority to individuals who are qualified to be confident, to bring recommendations, utilizing their voice, not just based on tenure or based on position, but based on qualifications tied to the end game. So while there's a lot that gets unpacked in coaching and speaking engagements, the reality of it is first, we've got to make the decision that we want to change. And then we've got to understand that change is hard. And so it's uncomfortable. But if we've committed to exercise those high performance leadership traits like consistency and precision and excellence and diligence and commitment, then it's going to be hard. But nothing great comes easy. And I think that the decision is how you shift to accepting that you've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And then the process is inclusive of multi-generations and DEI team members that are qualified. Only 8 players on the bench, and it always yields a high return.
I love that because you make it sound so simple and rational. Like, come up with your end game, people. Figure out what your intention is and then head towards it. I so appreciate that clarity. I know it is not simple, but that's clearly your gift is taking things that are actually really complicated and difficult and just making it clear and simple for people to take on. So, thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I'll be candid with you. It's not easy. Not every person is my avatar. I work for the ambitious leader who is self-aware enough to know that while they may be already at the C-suite, that there's a higher level of elevation that they can go because they can create greater impact. And so you've got to be willing to do the work, but it starts with clarity. And in spite of where it may look like you are in your life, oftentimes there's a level of ambiguity that's prohibiting us from getting to where we want to be, whether it's growing top line or bottom line income, whether it's building a team of individuals that can meet the needs of the culture and our clients, whether it's implementing technological innovation around AI, which is very different depending on the generations. This stuff is hard stuff. Yeah. So it's not that it's easy, but there's a strategy of execution that we talk about, especially in my coaching, with my coaching clients, that will get you to that point of decisive excellence. And once you get there, the world truly is your oyster, but it's not comfortable. It's difficult. Okay. It's just a commitment.
That's right. Well, so let me ask you, because so I'm sensitive. And one reason I stopped doing DEI work specifically for a long time was I was getting my feelings hurt and I couldn't take it. And I sort of felt that way around 2023. Now we're in 2024, and people just forgot that they cared about diversity at one time. They forgot that they cared about inclusion at one time. You know, you had the whole scandal with Scholastic making you click that you wanted to see diverse books, which were just books with kids of color in them, after they made a big statement in 2020. So how do you protect your heart and your sanity as you watch over the course of your career the dedication and the interest in actually creating justice and creating more inclusion wane up and down?
Look, the bottom line is I'm qualified. And I can go up against any person, white, black, male, female, and any other characteristic or way that we want to categorize one another. That I meet people where they are. And the reality of it is I'm leading with a level of empathy because some people are doing the best that they can based on their own individual background. So my expectation of people is based on their capacity to give what they actually have. And oftentimes people don't even have the awareness to know where their limitations are. And so my goal is to create positive impact, not to compete or confront someone because we may or may not agree. It's to help people understand what value proposition actually looks like versus what we've been told it is, and to move away from the stigma that's typically tied to fear because of our lack of inclusion or our lack of awareness or even our lack of interaction of individuals that are not like us. You know, many people might be afraid of a dog if they've never encountered a dog. But once they get to know them, they realize that not all dogs don't bite. I'm not comparing people of color with animals. What I'm saying is there's a mindset that people have that causes them to lead with fear. And so because of their fear, they choose to stay away, or in some instances, choose to bring harm to those that they believe may take something from them. I'm also a Christian. And ultimately, what I believe is that in leadership, if we got to choose anything, we need to choose love, because I believe that God is love. And so, regardless of what another leader might be leading with, like we have leaders today, even going in towards the election, that are leading with hatred, it's not about Republican or Democrat. If I got to make a choice, I'm choosing love. And so I think that the way that I'm able to sustain is that I understand my purpose. And my purpose is to be an example of what a real high performing leader is. And I believe that that's contagious. And when I can come to the table qualified because of my background, then it's able to infuse change and opportunity and impact and open up the hearts and minds of those that are ready. Look, we can't change them all, Misha, but what we can do is go one to one, and one to one, like you, will shift us to one to many. Because this individual conversation has an audience beyond the two of us. And as long as we stay true to our goal and our purpose, I guarantee you, we can make some amazing change. And it's not about us.
Girl,
So,
you got me having chill bumps over here. Yes. But again, you've taken something that, I view as complicated, sort of how do you motivate yourself to keep going? And you said, but what is your purpose? And you live to that purpose. And that's how you keep going and getting up every day. So,
but
again,
there's some tools, Misha. I mean, how you're starting your day. I'm very protective of my end game. So do you have a routine that empowers you to entree into this world of crazy, staying true to your end game? What are the things that you say to yourself, and what is your self-talk? Are you speaking yourself up or down? Are you counting your wins? What does your tribe look like? Who are the people that you're allowing to hold you accountable, that care enough about you to tell you the truth versus allow you to hit a wall and talk about you behind your back? What is your process to change? This is why coaching and having sponsors and mentors are important. So there literally are things that you need to do personally in order to stay motivated. And then there are steps that you need to take in order to execute a process to be consistent. So it's not easy, but
totally.
it's a lot to talk about on a podcast. But it
Right.
definitely is possible. But you've got to be willing to implement some tools and some shifts in your overall daily routine in order to stay true to yourself.
That's great. Thank you. And I want to shift gears a little bit to talk about how do you talk to the folks in leadership in heels? These people who are trying to get through these doors that you've just kicked open. How do you help them to feel like they are worthy of going through those doors and to look past the people who might give them side eye because they know what they can do?
Look, I think people often look at the outcome of successful individuals without knowing what the story and the journey is. I'm a woman that was 4 years old sitting on the floor who heard the words, "I never wanted kids anyway." I'm a woman who's gone through domestic violence and been violently raped. I'm a woman who grew up with low self-esteem. And so it's through the authenticity and transparency of your journey that allows other individuals to recognize and see that I too can be wherever I choose to be if I don't allow those things that have come in my life as obstacles to become barriers to entry. That I had to actually decide first that I wanted more for myself than the circumstances that I had gone through. So, Leadership in Heels is a safe space for leaders and organizations to come when you're talking about our events that we execute annually, and to be empowered on how to actually lead with decisive excellence, to be empowered on how to break the code switching, amplify your voice, exercise self-care, lead with multi-generational leadership, create cultural transformation in hybrid environments. So during these events, individuals come expecting not only the network with individuals who desire to be better, but also to walk away with tools that shift their lives. And then through partnerships with nonprofits, I'm able to participate in trainings and workshops of 7 segments that I've selected of individuals who have and should have an opportunity to high performance leadership training, but may not have the resources. So it's like organizations like yours and organizations that contribute as partners and sponsors who believe in investing in the underserved, who have the qualifications and desire to get more for their lives. so that I can come to the table and provide that support through training and development, workshops, and virtual learning. So that's Leadership and Heals, our nonprofit. And I love for anybody to check and look us out and up and see how I can support them.
Well, we're going to have that information, how they can look you up and support and even take part in the show notes. So we're definitely going to make sure people know about that. And so my last question is, I want people to be able to turn off this podcast and know one thing that they can do differently that will move the ball down the road for them. So maybe it's how to get clear or how to face their fear. I mean, you tell me, what's one thing that you would suggest someone listening to this podcast who is dedicated to social justice, equity, and positivity? What's one thing they can do?
I think the one thing that people can do is you got to get clear on your end game. You got to get clear on the legacy you want to leave and the story that you want all people to tell. And you've got to understand that you have a responsibility to lead with positive impact. And I would encourage people that when you start your day every day, be intentional around that. For me, I wake up, I look myself in the mirror, and I declare the day I'm going to have. I say, good morning, beautiful. Today is going to be amazing because I choose that. I exercise habits around how I'm spending time with God and prayer and what I listen to and exercising and how I start my day in order to empower myself. So if you could walk away with one thing today, I would encourage you to make a decision every single day on how you want to impact the individuals that come in contact with you, especially during times when people don't meet your expectation. I'll say this, in my family, I want people to experience love. Do they disappoint me? Absolutely. But in that encounter with them, they should walk away with that conversation feeling love. In my company, I want all of us to create positive impact. Do I get disappointed? Absolutely. But in my training and development, I want them to know that everything they do is not about a transaction. It's about the impact that the work that we do has on our community and the people that we serve. So I would say, if there's one thing you can do, is get clear on how you want to impact the individuals that will encounter you every single day, and then lead with decisive excellence and make sure that your actions follow. And we will change the game around diversity, equity, inclusion, multi-generational leadership, and overarching high-performance leadership in our individual places, spaces, communities, cities, and world. I really believe that. One person at a time.
All right. Look, y'all, I know you got to be fired up and ready to go because I'm fired up. Thank you so much for this message today. Scharrell, I'm going to put all of your information into the show notes, but can you just please tell people how they can get in contact with you to learn more, do more, be more?
Absolutely. You can reach me at ScharrellJackson.com. It's SCHARRELL Jackson. ScharrellJackson.com. You can look me up on YouTube if you're looking for motivation and inspiration under my name, or on Instagram at leadership.in.heels, HEELS. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. Send me an email, schedule some consultation time, or just follow me on social media. And just know that if you're looking to take your life to the next level and you can't figure it out and you're in a place of ambiguity, connect with your girl, Scharrell Jackson, because baby, I got you.
She got you, y'all. Have a wonderful day. Scharrell, thank you so much for being with us today. I am motivated. I'm ready to go. Like, let's go make a great impact on the world.
Absolutely. One person at a time.
That's right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And that's our episode of Cross-Pollinating Justice. DEI experts for kids and adults share best practices. I'm Mija Godfrey, your host and the founder of Jumbo Books. Jumbo Books sends our subscribers children's literature every month that star kids of color as the protagonists of their own high-quality and super fun fiction stories. Our stories resonate in joy, fantasy, and the everyday marvel of being a kid. Check us out at www.jombobooks.com.